Hi, my name is Wayne, and this is Type Tested. Today, I'm back in my garage and working on a project typewriter. This is a Royal No. 5 that I obtained about a year ago and have been working on off and on since then. It was basically in functional condition, but did have a few problems that needed to be corrected. And one of those was the fact that it had an endless amount of dirt on it. And I cleaned and cleaned and cleaned, and I could still take flits over various parts of this typewriter and pull more dirt off. But it's never going to come off. I'm convinced now that the dirt is actually in the paint. So I went back with a little new finish, and that got a much better shine on it, much better results. And to clean it, one of the things that I did was to take all of these links off, pull all of the keys out so that I could get at the plates underneath it. And I also pulled all the type bars. Now, in order to do that, I actually also pulled the, I guess I'll call this the ribbon drive reversing arm in order to gain access. It's not difficult to remove. It fits in a couple of holes. There's one there, and it's got a screw to hold it in place. So I take that screw out, lift it out, put the screw back in to keep it where it belongs, and then you're done. However, when I was reassembling it, I noticed that we had a little bit of an issue. If you notice, this type bar doesn't want to sit down all the way. There are a couple of others here as well. And that is because, so first off, that's associated with this key here, the fraction key. So it's the second one in. Looking at it, you see that this bar, this little bar here, wire, whatever you want to call it, is attached to the type bar, and as I move it here, you can see the bar move. Yeah, a little bit. So there's the key, and there's the bar. So this bar is not quite long enough to be able to allow the type bar, or this rod, or whatever you want to call it, this link. I'll settle on link. This link is not long enough to allow the type bar to return to its rest position. Now, in the case where you have Now there are other bars here which are actually a little too long, and as a result wouldn't allow the key to return fully to its rest position, resulting in a key that was partially down. That I had to fix by shortening the bar, and I did that by putting a little bit of a bend in it. I'm not sure what happened to this typewriter, whether it was refurbished and the wrong links were put in it, or if the links were originally put in a different order, and when I reinstalled them in numerical order, things got kind of mixed up. But if you'll notice, I have several others here that are also problematic, which I will also have to deal with. This particular case gives me a chance to try one technique on how to make this link be a little bit longer. So you'll notice it's completely straight. I can't unbend it and make it reach further. I'm going to have to find some other way to straighten it out or to give it some extra reach. And that is something that I don't want to do, but it's the only way I can think of doing it. And it's going to be to take that link out and work it in order to stretch that metal just a little bit. It doesn't need to much more reach. Just 2 or 3 millimeters is all that it will take to get that type bar to rest correctly. So I am going to show you how I'm going to accomplish that. First thing I have to do is take that link out, and once these are in place, it's not exactly as easy as you might expect. So we have the return spring here, and this spring also trips this bar down here, which is the It also trips this bar down here, which is a universal bar, because the ribbon drive is attached to the carriage here. So as the carriage advances, so does the ribbon. So there's no separate drive for the ribbon. So every time you press a key, let's find one here, it will pull. Every time you press a key, it will pull that up. That's what the little hooks are for. And then the spring, which is mounted down here and can be adjusted to a different position if you need a little bit more spring tension, will pull the bar, the connecting link back down where it belongs, which will pull the type bar back down where it belongs. And this little bit of wire here is what's going to keep the key, it's going to provide a little bit of a pivot, a little bit of a leverage to put the key back where it belongs. Yeah. That one's actually not connected yet, but you get the idea here. So this pulls up, the spring pulls down, and this allows the key, the force to be redirected so the key goes straight back up. And there's a little kind of a nub on the side of the keys to limit its upward travel. So let me go ahead and mount this camera where it belongs and take that link off, and I'll show you how I'm going to go about fixing that. So give me just a moment. All right, so the first thing I have to do is to identify the correct link. That's this one here. I have to pull it away from the key, and it looks like it's going to be best done with a pair of pliers just to pivot it out. Then I have to pull it away from the type bar, pull it back out here, and I can actually leave this in place, which I will go ahead and do, because that can also be kind of a pain to put back together. Then you need to come measure this and see that, let's get it right. It is exactly 152 millimeters long, it looks like. So since that was a pretty big offset in terms of how high that bar was sitting up, I'm going to try to stretch this to 155 millimeters. We'll see how that goes. Now, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to take advantage of the fact that this looks to be just mild steel. So that being the case, if it's not hardened steel, then I ought to be able to work this with a hammer and be able to get it to reach a bit further. Now, the problem with this is that if I do this incorrectly, I can very easily break this, and then I'll have to silver solder it back together, and that is a whole nother level of headache. So let's go over to the anvil on my vise and let's see what happens here. Okay, so you'll have to forgive the disorder of my work area. I'm not necessarily the neatest person around. So I'm going to take a small hammer here, and I'm going to hit this first on one side, and then I'm going to turn it 90 degrees, hit it on the other, kind of go back and forth a bit in different spots, because the metal has to go somewhere. Some of it's going to go straight out, and some of it's going to go this way. By turning it 90 degrees and hitting it again, I'm forcing more metal in this direction than I am across it. And if you're going to do this, I advise taking it light first. Try to figure out exactly what it takes to do the job so that you don't overdo it. And as I do this, this rod will bend opposite the direction of my strike. Straighten that out a bit and measure it again. That was good for 1 millimeter. Okay. Take another measurement. That was good for about another 0.5 millimeter. And if it's not obvious, I recommend this as an absolute last resort. All right, now at 154 millimeters, a little bit more. The problem with cold working metal is I can only do so much before you put enough stress in the metal that it will break. But hot working it also kind of presents its own issues, and it's easy to overdo it when you're hot working. One more pass. You can see there it's kind of starting to stress out a bit, so I'm going to have to be very careful. I think I've done as much as I can. Now about 154.5. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to round this out a bit. I'm really concerned about this section right here. So I don't think I can risk trying to round that out. Yeah, so I've done as much as I can. I'm going to get some sandpaper and try to put a better finish on this. So after working it with some emery cloth and a little bit of 600 grit sanding paper, or a sanding sponge in my case, I've managed to take the burrs off of it. It seems to sit basically flat. So let's go back over here. And let's see if I can't put this back in and get it to work. The camera where you can see it. So link goes there. Come on, get in there. All right, I'm going to have to take this out in order to put it back on. I thought that might be the case, but I was kind of hoping to avoid that. So let's go. Pull you out. Pull you out. So that goes in here. Spring goes through that hole there. Yeah, the other way around is usually easiest. Now, I've got to put this back in here. And I'll hold off putting that spring back on just yet. I'll reach over, hold the type bar up where it belongs. Get it back connected there. Reach up and connect it back to the appropriate key lever. Where is that spring hook? And put that back in. Put that back in there. Let's see what happens. So now, as you can see, that type bar is now coming completely to rest, and yet everything still works. I am concerned that over time, because of how much I had to stretch that link may break and may have to be soldered back together, or perhaps replaced. The problem with replacing it is you have to deal with this, which means you have to take that off, which looks like it's just crimped on. You can crimp and solder that, and you'll note that that has a number on it which indicates which position it goes in. So these rods are not all the same length. They differ depending on what they're trying to do. So as I said, an absolute last resort, but it did the job. Now I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, looks like 10 to go, but most of them are going to be less distance than that. So it's amazing what a difference a millimeter or two can make in how this typewriter operates. Anyway, that's my Royal number 5. It's slowly coming back together. You can see the keys that I have the levers off of here. So I'll fit those on one at a time and examine these others that are already in here, and we'll see what happens. But I'm very hopeful that I'll have this up in shape, minus needing a new platen because the old one's cracked, and also need a couple of screws, and then I'm going to have to figure out how to bend that back because this got dropped at some point. And that's kind of why the paper bale sits at a bit of a funny angle, because that's tied onto here. But at any rate, I hope this will be a good typewriter when I get done. So that's all there is for today. Again, my name is Wayne, and this is Type Tested.